free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to...
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Two-Tone Talk podcast with your host, me, Brad Steele. This is episode 5, and today we have no choice. We are left with no other option but to talk about what happened yesterday in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as the Tennessee Titans traveled to Philly and got their butts kicked by the Eagles, led by Jalen Hurts, but also Arthur Juan Brown. And the final score, 35-10. The Titans fall to 7-5 on the season and are now on a 2-game losing streak, while the Eagles improve to 11-1. They are, without a doubt, Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. First things first, right out of the gate, I want to clarify something. On my main channel, this podcast is available on YouTube, Two-Tone Talk Podcast. It's also available on Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud. But I want to clarify, on my main channel, which is primarily used for music, I made a video about the game yesterday. And in that video, I was talking about A.J. Brown and what a big game he had against the Titans yesterday. And I was talking about John Robinson and the organization and the trade and all that. And I threw in a throwaway comment where I said, A.J. Brown is a garbage human being. And, of course, A.J. Brown is not a garbage human being. I was caught in the moment. It was right after the game, and that just blurted out, even though it's clearly not true. I've got so much pushback in the comments, primarily from Eagles fans, letting me know that that comment was very out of line. And I, if you happen to see this, just want to let you know that I agree with you. It was out of line, and it was just me being careless in that moment. As for A.J. Brown in the game he had yesterday, listen, we know how talented he is. We know what a great wide receiver he was with the Titans and now is with the Eagles. What I want to talk about regarding A.J. Brown is what it must have been like for John Robinson to sit there yesterday and watch that unfold in front of him. The best wide receiver in the history of our organization that he traded away. Now, last week's podcast, I said that I believe A.J. Brown wanted out of Nashville. I believe he wanted to be traded. I believe he wanted, in particular, to go to Philadelphia and play with his buddy Jalen Hurts. A.J., yesterday in his post-game press conference, he said otherwise. He said he wanted to stay in Nashville. He wanted to stay a Titan forever, and they wouldn't do it. They traded him. Let me first of all say, if that's true, if what A.J. Brown is saying is true, and he was traded even though that's not what he wanted, then John Robinson and all of the other management in this organization should be having to answer for it in a court of law. If that's true, and he wanted to stay, and they traded him anyway, they should have to answer for that in a court of law. And it is the dumbest trade in history. But here's the thing. Let's say I'm right. Let's say AJ really wanted to leave. You still had to let him go. Okay? It's still a stupid trade either way. Because I said this in the video I did on my main channel yesterday. You know who else wanted to trade in the offseason? A wide receiver that wanted to trade? Deebo Samuel. He demanded a trade publicly. And you want to know what the 49ers said to Deebo Samuel? They said, forget it. Forget it. We ain't trading you. We're going to keep you. We're going to pay you. And you're going to be playing for us. And lo and behold, he's a San Francisco 49er to this day. You had to make a decision. The management of the Tennessee Titans organization, they made a decision to trade this guy. Whether it's what he wanted or not, You could have just said, no, we're going to pay you. We're going to keep you here in Nashville. And you didn't do it. You let him go. You let the best wide receiver in the history of this organization walk. And look at what we have now. All due respect to Treylon Burks, he is the only bright spot in this offense right now. By far. He's it. He's the only, maybe other than Chig Okonkwo, he is the only bright spot in the offense. But now he's in concussion protocol, and look at what we have left to deal with. Robert Woods, dropping passes left and right. Nick Westbrook-Akine ain't really done much of nothing since that flea flicker in the Broncos game. And I don't even know who else. Who else? I mean, the punt returner? I mean, my goodness. And this is what we have to deal with. Because not only did you trade AJ away, but 2 years ago, you let Corey Davis walk. You thought we could do without him. And now he's making plays for the Jets. I just watched it yesterday. So I don't know what to tell you. All I know is that whether it's what AJ wanted or whether it's not what AJ wanted, it's what they gave him regardless. And it was on full display yesterday that, yes, all due respect to Treylon Burks, and I have high hopes for him just like the rest of you, trading AJ Brown was stupid. It was dumb. It was idiotic. And I'm afraid it's a trade that we're going to be talking about for years to come because it may have started a snowball rolling downhill for the Tennessee Titans. Let's leave AJ alone. Let's leave that issue alone. He was traded in April. Yesterday, I said last week, it's going to be like seeing an ex for the first time in public, seeing AJ Brown play Titans. You know what it was like yesterday? It was like seeing an ex who is now dating someone who is a lot cooler and better looking than you. You know what I'm saying? It was like watching an ex who moved on and is now with somebody who is so much more awesome than you have ever been. Oh, now let's talk about the Titans. Let's talk about who we do have. Because AJ, he's not Titan anymore. Got to let it go. Let's talk about who we do have. And let's talk about what we saw yesterday. The Tennessee Titans are frauds. They just are. What's the old quote? They are who we thought they were. We didn't want to believe it, but this is who they are. They're frauds. They can beat the Colts. They can beat the Texans. They can beat, the Broncos, the Packers. They can beat those, bad to mediocre teams. Sure, yeah, absolutely. They can win the AFC South because the AFC South is a horrible, horrible, horrible division. You want to know what happened in the AFC South yesterday? Titans lost to the Eagles 35-10. The Colts lost to the Cowboys 54-19. The Jags lost to the Lions 40-14. And the Texans lost to the Browns 27-14. Kudos to the Texans for at least making the score look respectable, because the other three teams in the AFC South did not. The AFC South's a horrible division, and the Titans, yeah, they're the best team in that division. And they're going to win that division, and they're going to host a playoff game, and that's about it. That's about it. They are going to be a first-round exit in the playoffs. They are going to have to probably play either the Bills or the Dolphins, and they're going to get smoked. And if I'm wrong, I will gladly come back and, admit it later on. But you guys watched yesterday. You watched what was on full display in Philadelphia. And this is a team that prides itself on being physical up front on both sides of the ball. I'm telling you guys, what has happened to this defensive front? What has happened to this defense? Forget the defensive front, whether the defense as a whole. I have never seen a defense within the span of 2 to 3 weeks go from looking amazing to looking just flat out bad. This is 2 games in a row that this defense that prides itself on being physical and gritty and making you earn every yard you get, they've been pushed around by the Bengals and now the Eagles. They just got pushed around and dared to do something about it. We can't get to the passer. Bud Dupree can't get home. Jeff Simmons is clearly not 100%. He probably doesn't need to play this week. I mean, he needs some time to rest because this guy is playing at probably 50 to 60%. He looks like a different guy. He looks like a different guy, and I know he wants to be in there, but for the sake of the opportunity to get to the passer, you probably need to set this guy down for at least a week because he ain't getting home right now. Rashad Weaver, what happened to him? He was showing a lot of promise. I ain't heard his name in weeks. Mario Edwards Jr., DeMarcus Walker, Tier Tart has kind of slacked off after the great start to the season he had. What is going on? Now we got Fulton hurt. We got David Long hurt. And yeah, that definitely hurt us yesterday. But let's not act like they were playing that great a defense before those guys got hurt. Yeah, it sucks that they got hurt and they were out for pretty much most of the game, but let's not act like they were doing that great when they were in there. And in the Bengals game, I mean, what's going on? With this secondary that showed so much grit and heart early on, what is going on with him? McCreary, Trey Avery, Byard, Hooker, like what has happened? I don't understand. I know you're dealing with injuries, and I know, like, especially with the Eagles, you're playing a high-powered offense, but, like, you played a high-powered offense in the Chiefs, and they played their butts off that night against the Chiefs. This looked like a completely different group of people yesterday. I don't understand. I don't understand. Maybe somebody out there can make sense of what has happened to this defense, but for these last 2 games especially, I mean, just pushed around. Just pushed around. And that defense was one of the only things that I was relying on to keep us in games. I said, like, if this defense can just play the way they have, we'll be in every game. Well, these last 2 games, they haven't been playing like they did. And yesterday against the Eagles, what a shocker. We were not in that game for much of it. I don't know, man. Now let's shift to the offense. Oh, gosh. I posted this on the Two Tone Talk podcast Twitter. If you're on Twitter, go follow me at Two Tone Talk. If I were going to try to fix this offense this season, forget next season, whatever. If I were tasked with trying to salvage this offense with the remaining games for this season, 3 things that I'm doing immediately. Number one, you already know what I'm going to say. I don't even have to say it because all of us Titans fans have said it till we're two-tone blue in the face. You got to fire Todd Downing. Nothing else that you could possibly do on offense, no other moves you could make matter if he remains the offensive coordinator. He's got to go. First thing. And because the way I see it, the ceiling for this team, I just hit the mic, so sorry if you heard a loud bump. The ceiling for this team is what it is. You're going to win the AFC South, and you'll be lucky to win a playoff game. That's the ceiling. Okay, we just have to admit it. And so there's really no problem in just letting the guy go. The ceiling for this team is what it is either way. Now, personally, if we go beyond this season, I would love to see them hire Frank Reich as the offensive coordinator. But for right now, we got to get this Todd Downing out of the way. That's first thing. That's first things first. Nothing else you do will matter if you do not get rid of him first. Now, do I believe it's going to happen? No. But it should. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'm taking a good long look at this offensive line. because they're going to get Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry killed. They're going to get them killed. Either that, or you're going to have Derrick Henry demanding out of Nashville if this does not get fixed. This offensive line is putrid. Let's start with Dennis Daly. He doesn't need to be on the field anymore. I don't want to see it again. He is not an NFL caliber offensive lineman. He shouldn't be on the field. He needs to. You gotta get him out of there. I don't know who else you got. If you want to try and put Radens over there, if this Jamarco Jones, who's been on IR all year, if he's going to be healed up, if you want to put him over there. If you want to put Corey Levin over there, he's a backup center. I don't care if you want to put him over there. If you want to take one of the other starting five and put them over there and then put somebody else in their spot, I don't know. But you got to rearrange some things to where that guy's not on the field anymore. I'm sick of watching it. He is a liability. The false start yesterday, which was the difference between a field goal and a touchdown. Not that it would have mattered. But that was pathetic. That was pathetic. And then, how many times? I think the guy gave up like 3 or 4 sacks yesterday. You cannot continue with that guy at left tackle. That is the most important position on the offensive line for a right-handed quarterback. It cannot continue. It cannot continue. You have got to get him off the field. Next up, we got to look at this Aaron Brewer. We got to look at Aaron Brewer. He's too small. I'm sorry, the guy has heart. He does everything he can, but he's just too small. He is too small to be on an NFL offensive line. If you've got anybody else available, if there is a free agent offensive lineman who is sitting on the couch at home, who's been training, waiting for an opportunity, you need to give him a call and say, come to Nashville immediately. Because Aaron Brewer, that may be the worst left side of an offensive line in the NFL. Dennis Daly and Aaron Brewer, nope. Cannot do it anymore. Cannot do it. The problem is, realistically, okay, that's 2 offensive linemen that have to, have something done about them. And you can put Radens in one of those spots, but that leaves the other one open. I don't know. Nicholas Petit-Frere, rookie, right tackle. Showed a lot of promise early on in the season. He's been absolute trash. He's been absolute trash the last 2 games. He's either got to fix it or you got to do something about that. So that's 3 out of 5. And I'm not totally going to let Nate Davis off the hook. Because he was really solid last season, and there are times this season where he's leaving a lot to be desired. You talk about the run game and you ask why Derrick Henry's in this huge slump that he's in. Sometimes he's missing a hole, I'm sure. The play calling absolutely plays a role, but this offensive line's playing a role in that too. They're getting toasted. And again, you can try and plug Radens in at one of those spots, but, that's we have numerous guys who probably need to be considered as taking them out. And we don't have anybody, we don't have anybody. Is Dennis Kelly? Dennis Kelly's still with the Colts, right? I don't know. That's the second thing I do. Third thing, 2-parter here. Number 1, you have to hope that once Traylon gets out of concussion protocol, is a dirty hit, by the way, dirty hit on him yesterday. Once he gets out of concussion protocol, you got to hope he continues in the right direction. But in addition to that, you got to hope this Kyle Phillips can come in off IR and do something. He's a rookie. Feel like we ain't watched him play in forever. You got to hope this guy can come in and add something. You got to hope that Racey McMath, I pretty much still view him as a rookie, you got to hope he can come in and do something at some point to maybe give this passing game a spark. But other than that, here's the second part. And I said this before. Is there, obviously the trade deadline is passed and OBJ ain't happening. It never was. There's got to be a free agent wide receiver at home who can give you something more than what you're getting. I don't know whether it's T.Y. Hilton. I don't know who it is, but I would be willing to take a shot on somebody like that at this point. I cannot watch Robert Woods drop another pass. I cannot watch the Titans line up with a group of wide receivers that you know cannot get separation or get open, other than Traylon Burks. Once he got the concussion yesterday, I knew the game was over because we have no other threat. Now, the tight ends can do some good stuff when we run play action, but we never run play action because Todd Downing is an absolute imbecile. So, but that's just some things I would do if I were trying to fix this offense immediately and try to salvage something for this season. That's 3 steps you got to take. Get rid of Downing, move some guys around the offensive line, get Dennis Daly out of there immediately, and give anybody an opportunity to steal a job from Aaron Brewer or Nicholas Petit-Frere. And then hope that these guys coming in at wide receiver can give you a spark. It's amazing to me when you talk to people who are not Titans fans. They're fans of somebody else, some other team. They always, when they talk about the Titans, it's always the same thing. Well, you guys have got to get rid of Tannehill. That's always the answer, is Tannehill. And it's baffling to me, as a guy who watches this team every week, I'm like, man, when I think about problems with this team, I'm not naive. I know Ryan Tannehill is not, elite. I know. I'm not saying that. But when I think about problems with this team, he may not even be in the top 10. I mean, I don't know what you expect the guy to do. With an offensive line like this and weapons like this, did you guys see the clip of Tannehill on the field talking to A.J. Brown after the game? They're hugging, they're talking. Tannehill puts a towel up to his mouth, says something to A.J., and then just gets this look of disgust. You know what he said. You know he put that towel up and probably said something to the effect of, we should have never traded you. We suck. We have no weapons. We're not going anywhere. And listen, I'm not here to say Ryan Tannehill's that guy because, he is what he is. He's middle-of-the-pack quarterback. But, with a middle-of-the-pack quarterback, you got to get him a ton of weapons to help him out. You got to get him a good offensive line to help him out. Kirk Cousins. Look at the season Minnesota's having. Kirk Cousins is he's a good comparison with Ryan Tannehill. They're 6 one way, half dozen the other, in my opinion. The difference is Kirk Cousins has Justin Jefferson and a better O-line, better weapons all around, so much more to work with than Tannehill. So it just baffles me, and I'm not like a Tannehill, I'm not a Tannehill homer. I'm just saying, it baffles me when people are like, well, the Titans, the first thing I got to do is get rid of Tannehill. It's like, dude, you put anybody in there at quarterback on this team, and you can forget it. I mean, maybe if you put Mahomes in there, he would be able to work some of his magic, just running for his life. But, this offensive line, you're talking about at least 3 guys right on top of him every time. And it's the same thing with Derrick Henry when he runs the ball. So, if you tuned in either on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever, and you expected me to yell and scream and pitch a fit, here's why I'm a little calmer in my demeanor here. And I said this on the Two Tone Talk Twitter last night. It's not that I don't understand how ugly yesterday was. I totally understand it was a disaster. But, and this is sad, but it's also just put you at peace with it. I've just kind of surrendered to the fact that this is this just is what it is. This is who this team is. They can squeak by the bad to mediocre teams, but they ain't beating nobody that's good. Bengals, Eagles, Bills, Chiefs, Giants. These are the teams they've lost to this season because those teams are good. I have surrendered to the fact. Last year I felt like the Titans had a chance at the Super Bowl. So when they lost that playoff game to the Bengals, I was devastated because I thought there was actually hope that this team could do it. Or that team could do it. This team, I know what they are. I know what the ceiling is. And so when they go out and they get clobbered by a team who actually is a Super Bowl contender like the Eagles, it's like, well, yeah, that sounds about right. That's about it. I think we probably had a lot of false hope after that Packers game a few weeks ago because the Titans actually looked really good in that game. But you got to remember, the Packers aren't good. The Packers are not good. That was, I know it's at Lambeau a few days after they had beaten Dallas, but the Packers are not. I mean, look at their record. They're not that good. And the fact of the matter is, even if you were excited about the direction of the team, they've pretty much crapped the bed the two games since then. So whatever excitement you had, totally been squandered. Mike Vrabel says the team's at a crossroads and they've got a decision to make. I think people are reading too much into that quote by him. I think people are thinking that that means as an organization they've got decisions to make about coaches that they might let go or whatever. But I don't think that's what he meant. I think he meant what he always means, and that was we got to play better and we got to coach better. That's what he meant. It meant that we've got to decide what team we're going to be the rest of the way. I said it on my video I did yesterday. The Titans have to play the Jags twice. They got to play the Texans again. If they win those three, they're not beating Dallas. They got to play Dallas on a Thursday night. Dallas is going to slaughter them. And the Chargers, who I'll talk about them in a second, they got to play the Chargers too, and I don't think they'll beat the Chargers. Justin Herbert, the way this defense has been playing, he'll light them up. So, you're looking at best at a 10-7 record, win the South. Everybody will try and act like that's a big deal. We won the South for 3 years in a row. Congrats. You beat out the Texans, Colts, and Jags. 3 of the worst teams in the league. Let's talk about the other games yesterday. Brutal loss for the Falcons. I said before this game, I picked the Falcons to win. I said the Falcons are trying to contend for a bad division, and if you're going to try to do that, you can't lose to teams like the Steelers. Well, they did. The Falcons lost. Mariota, terrible interception at the end. It just you get what you get with Marcus at quarterback, and don't I know it? Don't we Titans fans know it? Tough loss for the Falcons, and I guess if you're Atlanta, you sit back and watch this game tonight between the Saints and the Bucs, and just hope that I guess you hope the Saints win. I don't know. Either way, somebody's picking up a game on you tonight. Packers beat the Bears. Again, this game really didn't have much playoff implication to it. But Aaron Rodgers, as he says, he owns Chicago. He owns the Bears and owned them again yesterday, 28-19. I expected the Jags to put up a much better fight than they did against Detroit. I picked the Lions to win. I thought the Jags would put up a better fight. And you better be glad they didn't, by the way, Titans fans. Because if the Jags won this game, that AFC South gets a little more interesting than it should be. I'm not saying that would have meant the Jags would have, but the Jags would have kind of if you're Jacksonville and you win this game yesterday against Detroit, you're sitting here saying, hey, we still got to play the Titans twice. We could actually find our way back into this thing. But they lost to the Lions 40-14, got completely killed, and the Lions are not totally dead. You look at this NFC playoff race for that wild card spot, Detroit not totally they're not totally out of this thing. So interesting to watch there. And they're a team with the weapons that they have. If they were to sneak in, I'm not saying they're make a Super Bowl run, but they might upset somebody in a first round matchup. Vikings beat the Jets 27-22 in what had a playoff type feel to it, because these are two probable playoff teams. Vikings definitely, the Jets probably make it too. The Jets lost, but man, this Jets team is so gritty. They've got so much heart. The Vikings built a lead early, and I thought oh, that's it. Vikings are going to whoop them. But man, they climbed back in. Corey Davis making plays for the Jets, but the Vikings get the win 27-22, and the Vikings are easily going to win their division. I mean, they probably about clinched it. Commanders and the Giants end in a tie, 20-20. I know most everybody agrees NFL games, it should not be possible to end in a tie. Shouldn't be possible. The guys just play too hard. They put their bodies on the line for a full 60-minute game. And I think it's ridiculous that it's even a possibility that there could be no winner. I think they've got to come up with a way to where you can ensure that somebody's going to win, because that's just ridiculous. It's bad for the players. It's bad for the fans. But the Commanders and Giants tie, I don't know what that means for these two teams in terms of the playoff race, but they tied, and that sucks. Ravens, without Lamar Jackson, they had to scratch and claw to beat the Broncos 10-9. I think it's funny because the ending of this game was the exact same as the end of the Ravens-Jaguars game last week. The Broncos had a chance at the end to kick a really long field goal and win, and they missed it, just like the Ravens did last week. But the Ravens, this was big because the Bengals, as we'll talk about in a second, the Bengals are looking really, really good right now. And the Ravens are just fighting for their lives to keep their head above water. Not just in the AFC North, but in the AFC wildcard race. So this was big. If they lost to the Jags and the Broncos back-to-back, that would be bad. Now the story for the Ravens is, can you get Lamar Jackson healthy? He suffered a knee injury yesterday. Still waiting on an update as to what the extent of that injury is. If they're without him, it's going to be tough sledding, I think, for them. But for right now, they beat the Broncos. They improved to 8-4 on the season, and we'll see what the future holds for Lamar Jackson there. But that was a big win. Deshaun Watson returns to Houston. They beat Cleveland 27-14. Watson was 13 of 22 for 131 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. So didn't really light the world on fire at all. It's his first NFL game in 2.5 years. Just, I feel a little weird about Deshaun Watson, man. I don't know. I'm not going to say much about it, but Browns win. Again, meaningless game in terms of playoff implications. Seahawks over the Rams 27-23. Big win for Seattle. They had to get this one. You could feel that they were kind of nosediving with a couple of losses to teams that you felt like they should beat. So it was good for them to come in and get this win over a beaten, battered Rams team. Seahawks win, and they keep their NFC wild card playoff hopes very much alive. 49ers, so this is interesting. 49ers beat the Dolphins 33-17. And you see that and you want to say, hey, 49ers, they're the real deal. They're contenders in the NFC. But now Jimmy G's done. Was it broken foot, I think? Jimmy G's done. So what in the world? I mean, on one hand, you want to be encouraged because now the 49ers are 8-4 and they're looking good and they're playing great defense and they've got all these great weapons. They have no quarterback. Their quarterback right now is this guy Purdy. I think he's a rookie. He was 25 of 37 for 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. So those are not bad numbers for a rookie coming into a game against a good Miami team. How do you feel about going with him going forward? I don't know. One thing that interests me today is that the Carolina Panthers have put Baker Mayfield on the waiver wire. So are the 49ers going to try to land Baker Mayfield? I don't know. It's a very unique situation that I don't think I've ever seen. You've got a 49ers team with a great defense and just elite weapons all over the field, and no quarterback. It's very, very interesting. Bengals over the Chiefs 27-24. What did I not say? I feel like a prophet when it comes to this game. Number one, I picked the Bengals to win. Number two, I said that this game would be a lot like the AFC Championship game they played, and I think this is the exact same final score from that AFC Championship game. Bengals over the Chiefs. I'm telling you, the Bengals, they're going to be around. They're going to be around, and they're a contender in the AFC. Burrow, I think he's one of the best in the game. I really do. We hear a lot about Mahomes, and rightfully so. We hear a lot about Josh Allen, and rightfully so. And here lately, we hear a lot about Jalen Hurts, and rightfully so. I think Joe Burrow belongs in the conversation with all of those guys. He is a stud, and he's got Jamar Chase back and T. Higgins. They have got, you want to talk about another team with elite weapons all over the field. The Bengals, you better look out. And the Ravens better look out, of course, in their division. But, I mean, every team in the AFC should be put on notice. These are the defending AFC champions, by the way. Dolphins, Bills, Chiefs, all of you on notice. I'm not even going to include the Tennessee Titans in what I just said because they're not even in the same league as these teams. Brutal loss for the Chargers. They lose to the Raiders 27-20. Really, really, really bad loss. And the Chargers thus far have been a really, really, really disappointing team. They fall to 6-6, and with the Jets, I mean the Jets lost, and that helps them and the Patriots. But man, the Chargers just don't look right. Like I said, they've been a huge disappointment, and the Raiders. A little too late probably, but the Raiders have actually started. I mean, they beat the Seahawks and the Chargers. They're actually stringing together some wins. But like I said, as the song goes, it's just too little too late. The Sunday night game. I feel like a prophet with this too. I picked the Cowboys, but the reason I feel like a prophet is because I said it would be ugly. I said the Cowboys were going to annihilate the Colts, and they did. You don't see NFL teams putting up 50 points often. But the final score of this game was Cowboys 54, Colts 19. Huge fourth quarter for the Cowboys. I think they put up like 33 points in the fourth. It's almost like hiring an ESPN analyst who just happened to play for your team years and years ago to come in and coach your guys is not the answer. And I remember when they hired Jeff Saturday to be the interim coach, and everybody was like, "Oh, Jeff Saturday!" And then they beat who did they beat? They beat the Raiders when the Raiders were like in the biggest slump of all time. They beat the Raiders, and everybody's like, "Oh, Jeff Saturday! Oh my gosh, they're 1-0. Is this going to be the future of the team? Oh, Jeff Saturday! He's undefeated as a head coach. Ha ha ha!" Well, how's it been since then? They lost to a terrible Steelers team last week, and then this week they got absolutely embarrassed by the Cowboys in prime time. To the point, I mean, the most depressing thing in the world, Colts are out there taking a knee. They were taking a knee at the end just to get it over with. Embarrassing. Cowboys look great. They're a strong contender, and it's going to be interesting between them and the Eagles. Because them and the Eagles, and I mean, listen, I want to give the Vikings their respect. It's just Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott and then Kirk Cousins. It's just hard for me. And I would love to put the 49ers in the discussion, but with the quarterback situation, if they did what they did yesterday and Jimmy G was good to go, I would have the 49ers as a contender. But as it stands right now, I'm so iffy about their quarterback situation, I can't. So it looks like Cowboys, Eagles, and then maybe the Vikings and possibly the Niners over there in the NFC. As for the AFC, it's all the teams you expected. Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, and then the Dolphins as well. Even though the Dolphins took one on the chin yesterday. But there you go. That's week 13. And the Titans have the Jacksonville Jaguars coming to town next. If they lose to the Jags, you better find the nearest panic button and start smashing it. If they lose to the Jags, it's time for heads to roll. It's already had time for heads to roll, but it will be time. I mean, you might just want to set the stadium on fire if they lose at home to the Jags after these 2 weeks. You fall to 7-6, you're gonna have mutiny on your hands. Thank you guys for listening to episode 5 of the Two Tone Talk podcast. Don't forget, this podcast is available on Spotify, Apple. So if you're watching on YouTube and you would love to just listen while you commute to work or something, go over there, Spotify, Apple, or SoundCloud, and listen to the podcast. Or if you're listening and you want to watch along as I talk, you can search Two Tone Talk on YouTube. Of course, you can search me on Twitter as well, Two Tone Talk, and I would appreciate that. Be back this weekend with a preview of Week 14. Oh, tighten up. Staying way too high on the wins, staying way too low on the losses. It's the Two Tone Talk podcast. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Feel free